Blog Talk Radio.
At this pivotal time in humanity's evolution, we are beginning to remember. At this pivotal time in humanity's evolution, we are beginning to remember our organic technology. A technology, when used correctly, can create an experience that the majority of people the world over want to live. It is time to use this technology consciously for our own benefit and healing, and no longer unconsciously for our own demise. We are divine creatures, creating both our own personal and our collective experience, moment to moment. We invite you to join us in the reawakening of this technology through experiment and experience the power to create and manifest. Become part of the 3%. The collective imagination.
Welcome, everybody, to, I don't even know what to call today, the Collective Imagination Show for, what's the date? The 20th of February. Now, I am personally more nervous than I have been since doing this radio show from the beginning, because there is so much to share, and I've been saying since Monday morning, words are failing me to express the bigness of it all. And that's what I really hope gets conveyed today. And I believe we do actually have Heather with us, and I hope she comes through loud and clear. Heather, have we got you?
I'm here, Lisa.
Lovely. Awesome.
Thank you.
And we've also got, of course, Bob and
hello,
Brian.
Everyone.
Oh,
and there you are. And we've got Dee, and we're just waiting on Chris.
I'm here.
Oh, you're there.
Good.
Lovely.
Yep, all good.
Okay.
Calm down.
I know.
I just got to say real quick, I've been out of the mix for one day, and I feel like I'm coming back from a 1-year-long vacation, which, considering how much has happened today, just from being away from my computer for one day. So, trying to catch up.
Well, I'll share with you. I'm going to start by sharing with you my experience on Monday morning. One of the UCC filings that was filed on the 8th of December, we shared amongst a few of us, and I started to read it, and then Chris and I got on the phone with each other and started reading it together. And I did ask on yesterday's radio show that you please listen to my Beast Vision, and also listen to the show that Heather did with Mel in order to prepare yourself for today's show. And what hit me as I was reading these documents was, it was as if every little puzzle piece came into perspective and made a complete picture, which sent, firstly, chills down all over. Then I even felt nauseous. Then I felt all of and this feeling has stayed with me, I have to say, I felt this tunnel open up on my back, and all of my lifetime started to compress in on my back, as if everything I set out to do from the time I was created had led up to right now. And I don't say that lightly. I burst into tears. It's been a very emotional few days. And that's why the nerves, because, like I said, words are just completely inadequate to express all of this. And Heather, I don't even know where you want to start. where do you want to start?
Well, actually, a good intro is what you were just going through. I haven't even heard what you and Chris and Ken and Dee, I guess, were discussing once you found that document, because that's the essence behind the document, if you get my drift.
Yeah.
So if you could share with us, when you found that document, what kind of discussions did it invoke within you guys on that day?
Apart from the profanities? the holy crap moment? I don't know. Chris, you want to go first?
Well, yeah, look, it immediately brought an understanding to your continual statements ever since you started speaking publicly that it is done. Because here it was. This was the full stop at the end of the sentence, and it was, yeah. I mean, I was, you know, when you feel like you're on, if you're a body surfer, and you've ever been on the crest of a really big wave, and you know that when you kind of hit the bottom, it's going to be a beautiful thing. That's how it felt. Hard to describe, and at the same time, a fantastic thing to experience. And I hope everybody else who's been reading it in the last 2 hours has been having the same experience. It's just like it's the purest piece of truth I have ever been exposed to. Best way to describe it, I would say. What about you, Bob?
Oh boy, you're asking. Oh, it's like when you crest over the edge of a roller coaster, and you have that gasp when you realize what's actually happening, and that anticipation, that thing that you've been waiting for so long is right there in front of you. There was a rush. I'm still going through it, so it's kind of hard to.
Okay, for those of you who haven't looked at this document yet, the wording of it is up on my website at lisamharrison.com. It's on Dee's website at removingtheshackles.net. It's on, is it on American Kabuki's?
Yeah, it's on Kabuki.
It's probably on Kawula Pele. If it's not, it will be very shortly. And it will be on the OPPT-IN.com website if it's not yet. So you may want to go and pull one of those sites up so that you can have a look as we're going through this today. Words fail me. So I'm sorry. Heather, you're going to have to step in at this point.
Okay.
But one of the things for people to really understand what's happened, they have to, in my opinion, understand the multidimensional aspect of the UCC, for example, of these filings, and of the nature of the reality that we've been in. I mean, for most people who have been down this straw man road, they understand that money, cash, currency is a measure of current. That's why it's called currency. And that by harvesting the currency, they're harvesting our energy. A lot of people get that aspect of it. So if you can get that aspect of it, then you can make it's not much of a leap to understand the multidimensional aspect of what we're talking about here. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, it's about the journey. And I did talk with Mel. She asked for it, so we discussed it. And this document, I guess we need to deal with a few perceptions here. How about that? Because the perceptions, the expectations that one holds by design are what allows someone to see something or not see something, okay? And a lot of people on this planet specifically believe that the powers that were, some of them still call them powers that be because they see the machine, is perceived to still be rolling, but the spigot of energy has been turned off, and so it's really just rolling only because of the energy that was in the tubes when the spigot got cut off, okay? So let's address the powers that were. Everyone sees them as the cabal, the Bushes, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the dragons, Saint Germain, all of them. Well, with the exception of Saint Germain, the rest of them, and possibly the dragons, the rest of them are really just brokers. They're agents of the powers that were. When I refer to the powers that were, it's the wizards behind the screen, or the wizards behind the curtain, to make that reference to Wizard of Oz. Even the powers that were perceived as the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, those guys were even behind the curtain at one point for everyone on this planet, right? Took a lot of digging, a lot of research for people to figure out that they were behind at least the parts that they could see.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can grasp that to the specific purpose of this call, that those powers that were, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds et al., are really just brokers and agents, it might make this call, this particular purpose for today, a lot easier to grasp, to understand. Okay?
Anybody who's followed David Icke's work would understand that.
Yeah, there's a lot of people right now that have been. He's been persecuted for quite some time. And in banking, whenever there is a huge campaign, especially one on a global aspect, to discredit or essentially bury someone in all terms, you can tell that that person's basically exposing something they don't want exposed, okay? And whether that be David Icke or whether that be Fulford or even Charlie C. Miller, a lot of people have been going off on him, yet I know they don't recognize what service he was at the moment he was serving. And with absolute data, everyone will be able to see just how everyone was serving. Even the guys that, went in and implemented the UCC, believe me, last year, especially the end of the year, they were going, what the hell did we do? What the hell? Did we just put the noose around our own neck? They didn't even understand the eternal heart element or the absolute plan as opposed to the divine plan until it was too late. But that's about withholding information, right? Anytime there's information withheld from any part of a machine, those operators are going to go back and start questioning when things aren't going according to plan. Okay, so let's get to this filing then. If everyone can grasp that concept of the powers that were, in their minds, are really only the agents and the brokers to the real powers that were in all their dimensions, because the UCC is just an arm of a much greater harvesting and transfer tool. Okay, the UCC is the part that we see. And it is about energy. All of this is about energy. And taking energy back to, everything back to the energetic absolute prime. Okay? Well, as we went through, you can, if you read the OPPT filings, and they weren't meant to be read by the mind. The attorneys recognized what was going on, what was said in those documents, and what those documents were actually doing, because it was written in legalese, their code. However, what I call the divines, which would be Saint Germain, those in the angelic realm, the immortals, the elders, most of them are referred to as elders, especially over on the Asian side. Those are what I refer to as the divines, okay? And this moment of absolute now, of absolute current, is all about reconciling the contrasts, bringing back into beingness, oneness, the yin and the yang. Okay? So in order for something to be divine, there has to be something that is not divine in order to support it up, the divines. So that's what I mean by divines. Okay? And let's see, Lisa, you had also asked another question regarding some of the definitions. So let's go through those definitions so that when we go through this document, people can have the data and then they can choose what resonates within them, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So creator. In the documents, a lot of them, we use creator. Very specifically, not God, Allah, Yahweh, Father, but creator. And then when it became very, very clear that creator could be misused, the word, for creator sons or something less than first source, what I call source. So creator in the senses of these documents, the vehicle of energy for these documents, creator is first source, where everything is derived from, everything is created from. Okay?
Yep.
Bondservant. Okay, another word, bondservant. There was a specific reason why bondservant was used, and Miles was the one that brought this word up, along with those that he was helping work with to ferret all this stuff out for everyone. The whole entire planet, if not the whole source's universe. Okay? Bondservant, as I now know it, is eternal hearts. Okay? That first separation of source for experiencing duality. And
so in New Age speak, would you say, you know, the aspect of the creator that is you, or your higher self? Would you use those sort of terms if you were talking New Age speak?
You know, Lisa, I don't even know what New Age speak means. Just like I don't know what constitutionalist means. You know, these are words that are, I know absolute. That's it. And
yeah.
Absolute means everyone is the same. Everyone is one. So for me, my whole body cringes when I hear the word divine right now because it's still not reconciled yet.
Yeah.
There are still non-divines that have to exist in order to support the divine. That bothers me. But that's me. I can't speak on behalf of everyone else, but I'm not willing to play the role of non-divine. I can't imagine anyone else would be, but hey, that's a choice, right? And that is a free will choice that everyone can decide whether to make if you want to play the non-divine part. Okay, so bondservant in this particular, why we used it, and you can tell the moment we don't use it anymore, which is with this December, it was actually written on December 9th. It was entered into the UCC on December 10th. Okay? And bondservant was the last time it was used in this sense. You know, with the powers that were at the, we'll call them planetary level, the brokers that I was referring to earlier, they do not touch religion. In fact, that's the loophole in all of their crazy codes. They don't touch religion. The only way they can touch religion is someone goes in and registers themselves as a minister or their church as a church within the system. And that was the fatal catch in order to bring religion underneath the regulation. So if you are a bondservant to create source, creator, whatever name or label you want to give to first source, if you're a bondservant to first source, then you can't be a bondservant to anyone else. And that's the safety that we put all the beings under within these UCC filings. So essentially, quote unquote, the Rothschilds or Saint Germain or anybody else would have to duke it out face to face with first source, right? But the beings, the people, were safe. So that was the whole purpose of using bondservant. However, bondservant, in all intents and purposes within these documents, are the eternal hearts, and it's the end game. The end game of eternal hearts. And eternal hearts are embodied in any manifestation within Source's creation. Any energetic pattern that exists in all of Source's universe, including human beings, there are eternal hearts embodied within those states of body. Okay?
Yep.
So that is hopefully a clarification on bondservant, why we used it. At least in the beginning, it was a legal tool. And then it went into the multidimensional aspects as the aspects were understood, remembered. Okay? However, the last document that they ever are seen in is this last document on December 10th, when essentially all the universal contracts in Source's universe were declared by declaration of being fully performed. And a universal contract in this essence would be I, Heather, the eternal heart that's embodied in Heather, contract with First Source to go in and experience the separation. And that eternal heart is what makes the contract, and that contract results in the manifestation at any given moment of the energetic pattern of the eternal heart that is known to you guys as Heather. Yep. And the same would be for Lisa. It's a very personable contract. That's the eternal heart within all of you guys. That's where the tools of resonance all reside. Lately, I would gather that many of you, your tools of resonance are on full mode. You can sense what's bullshit, excuse my language. You can also sense what really resonates within in just a twinkling of an eye. I can say certain things, or someone else can say certain things, and you know exactly where to place it for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so going on to the actual filing, this is a journey about remembering that First Source, made a choice, a loving choice to experience through many. There's a man, GW, who calls them fractals. You can call them manifestations, whatever you would like, but essentially they are all First Source. So First Source makes a loving choice to experience through many, and that many, their job is remembering that choice to experience. Okay. So then, as we move through, on December 10th, we went in to go make a filing, and boy, that filing was actually from November filings, November 28th, the declaration. It took me like a week to go in and try to file all those online, and it takes usually, maybe 20 minutes to file it and get the receipt and the UCC filing from the Washington, D.C. Recorder of Deeds. Once I started to have some difficulties with these filings coming through, and the parameters of the program, the UCC programming, were so visibly altered, I could see it because I've been filing these for quite a while. And ever since October 24th down in Switzerland with BIS, someone has gone in and it's been changed. And I'll go over that later to explain what is happening with the wizards behind the curtain. But for now, just let that sort of kind of sit there. So Scott and Chris and Dee were discussing via email Chris's statements where I really want something, a letter, an open letter from the One People to the Divines, terminating the contract with thanks. That's how this whole thing started. And if you look back, a lot of people don't know, but Sheldon Neidel's been working with military for a couple months now, because of the accuracy of the information he was reporting. And he was reporting quite a bit of information about what the public trust was doing without naming names. or getting too specific until he started to state they're demanding gold, they've been creating the legal foundation, then all of a sudden the military got involved with them because he was so spot on and they were watching everything. Well, the last report of Sheldon's last week was they're waiting for the sacred agreement to formally be terminated. And that is what I call the universal contracts. Essentially, the contracts going and experience this separation, duality, whatever you want to call it. Those were terminated on December 10th. We kept very quiet because for the divines, the wizards behind the curtain, the same process that we went in and did with BIS, all the corporations parading around under the guise of government, it's the same process. Okay, this is the part of the powers that were and their slavery systems that people don't see, but they sense. They can't really vocalize it, but they sense it. And it operates on a different level. And if you look at the filings, you will see that we say things are a matter of record, duly entered into law ordinance. Law ordinance is the actual sources universal law ordinance. Then within sources universe, there's all these superverses and multiverses, and that is called universal ordinance. And we address that too. Notice upon creation, inclusive of universal law ordinance. And notice is given in universal law ordinance by action, because everything's energetic at that level. So all you have to do is action. Here on this planet, it's all entered into international law ordinance, and that is noticed by public registration. So hopefully that'll give some clarity on that blurb inside of those, which seem to be legalese, but it's actually very just simple, and it's absolute truth right there, and absolute transparency. So do you understand the difference between when we say law ordinance versus universal law ordinance versus international law ordinance?
Yeah, I think I do.
And that is your multidimensional aspect of the UCC. People will call it by many names, whether in every municipality, every state, every nation, every country is under the UCC. They may call it something else. That's why we put in the documents and any and all state and international equivalents. That's all you have to state. You don't have to know where they hid everything. It's there. And the fact that they don't come forward and all they say is UCC doesn't apply, all you have to do is say and all international equivalents. Okay?
Yep.
Okay. So once we realized, this is specifically just like the same process of when you buy a house and you have this long mortgage, okay? You have this long mortgage you supposedly contracted for, and we won't get into those aspects, but in that particular process, it is when you supposedly have paid off the entire house, the bank would issue an affidavit of full performance, and then the bank would issue an affidavit or a declaration of certificate of satisfaction. And it supposedly releases you from all obligations at that point, right? And they give you the purported deed of trust to your house, and you own it free and clear, right?
Right.
Well, that's essentially the same process so that people could recognize what was going on, because at this point I wasn't sure how fried the attorney brains were who were trying to assist the powers that were in trying to find loopholes to everything that was being done. And I put it in a very simple context that they could understand, because notice is very important. So if you look at this particular document, there's an affidavit of full performance, which is just all three parties stating what it is, stating what those universal contracts really were. And that's in Article 1. You have the creator, you have the bondservant, and then you have the manifestation. And the manifestation is the result of the universal contract. It is the embodiment that goes in to actually perform the terms of the contract in this sense, to experience separation. With the goal, this particular purpose, because there's many purposes of first source, in fact, to limit those, that's up to the individual. But essentially, creator, that's what the purpose is stated as. The purpose of this experience is remembering self, knowing self, and being self through guaranteed free will choice. The whole process, all the filings that OPPT did, which, the trustees really were just glorified secretaries, pulling down what already is and registering it at this level so that it made it from the bottom up to the top down, or perceived bottom up to the perceived top down, because everything just is. It is one. Okay. So the creator, if you go to Article 1, Section A, that is the statement. Experiencing by creation, all of those things, remembering self, knowing self, and being self through guaranteed free will choice. State the purpose. Then you have the bondservant, the eternal heart, verifying that purpose, saying that it entered knowingly, willingly, intentionally to accept to be of service within this universal contract. And that energy pattern would create manifestations, sometimes through many, many lifetimes. Many, many manifestations of that energy pattern. Okay, so then you have the last part, which is Article 1, Section C, the manifestation, which would be just the body that you see before you, Heather or Caleb or Randall. And one part of the multidimensional aspect of it, the body is what you see, right? The manifestation. And through that undersigned state of body, it verified, I intentionally chose to agree to forget myself on purpose so that I could remember self, know self, and be self by free will choice. This is the affidavit of full performance. It only takes one. If every manifestation, every being in Source's universe is a fractal of that first source, then it would only take one of those fractals to say, I remember myself. Source. Mm-hmm. And that is what is done in, Section D of that Article 1 and Section E. I did it, meaning source, first source did it. Through any one of the manifestations. The fun part is there was more than one. And now there's even more than three. There's many, many, okay? But knowing that you're source and that everyone around you is source, it's one thing to say it, and then it's another thing to do it, and it's a whole loving experience to do it with many of that first source. Okay, so that's that first section. Here's our full performance. I remembered who I be. I remembered that I forgot on purpose. I remembered who I be, that I be self, that I am, and that I have. And that was the. Here's the part that you guys didn't see, which I asked Dee to post. The part that says in Section D of that Article 1, I have remembered. I do know, and that I am self, and that I have preserved the right of opportunity for any and all manifestations of creation in all of creation's universe being Source's universe in this conversation, to know and be self without prejudice, without hiding the data. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So, Article E, the whole key about being and making it stick and nobody coming to mess with you is being and doing what you be with full responsibility and liability. I mean, if you look at the old system the old paradigm, the slavery systems, the powers that were, or at least the brokers of the powers that were that you guys know, did any one of them take responsibility or liability? I mean, that whole system is based on non-accountability and no responsibility and taking no liability, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in this particular statement for full performance, everything that we did in OPPT, we put our full personal responsibility and liability on top of everything. We insured it, not just with our embodiment, our bodies, or with our personal quote-unquote belongings. We did it with the full responsibility of our eternal hearts, the bondservant. That's what was ensuring it all that we did. That is what was also protecting us and why we weren't touched. There were orders for us not to be touched. But then again, if you look all the way back of where those orders came from, literally have the record untainted of the recording of every energy move, because energy moves, right? It never stops. If you had a recording, a record of that energy unaltered, you would see exactly who gave those orders, and it would show you who knew about what energy was and who was harvesting. Okay? So let's go on to Article 2. Article 2 of this particular document is the acceptance. I, as creator, experiencing by creation, lovingly, knowingly, willingly, intentionally accept the affidavit of full performance. I verify and ratify by declaration a certificate of satisfaction for all creation's universe to rely upon with my full personal responsibility and liability that this purpose of creation has been duly achieved. It's a done deal. Thank you so much for playing. The universal contracts are done. Now let's have fun in a different way.
So the whole duality experiment is finished. We achieved our goal. We honored our contract with the Creator, and it's over. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, and let's this is a perfect intro into discussing duality, what duality is. You know, duality is a tool. It was a tool to know separation, to understand the parts and bits of the absolute. It's like taking a motor. If you put absolute into an image of a car engine, and you take that engine apart to know what each piece is, how it works, and then you put that whole engine back together, okay? It's the same thing of what's happened with absolute here. Absolute, first source, basically allow for itself to be taken apart, all these separations, all these contrasts, so that the whole machine could be understood. And now this machine of absolute is being put back together and reconciled so that it can now run, but you guys are going to know how it runs. You're going to be able to use this tool of duality, and it's not a shackle. It's not a suffrage. You're going to be able to use this tool of duality to create whatever you want to create, because now you know how it works. You know what it looks like inside. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and your words that you often say in conversation about contrast. It's when you're in the thick of it, it's duality. But when you can take that step back and see it for what it is, it's simply contrast.
Mm-hmm.
In order to make a choice.
Yeah, to make an informed choice, right?
Yeah. And the question has just come up I've just lost it, but it was relevant, in the chat room about how long it takes and how long will this knowledge take to sort of sweep through the eternal hearts of everybody. And what I got from this document is another one of your favorite sayings, in the twinkling of an eye, you now have everybody can choose to remember right now.
Yeah.
because we fulfilled the contract to forget. So just make the choice, if you want to remember it all right now.
Well, and how about we do this? I'll finish this particular document because what you just stated is what is happening right now.
Yeah.
So it's very relevant. And the twinkling of an eye was Loie. Last year, we were always talking about twinkling of an eye. It was a statement she brought up, and it really resonated with me. So that was last spring and early summer. So all of a sudden, I started to see twinkling of an eye in all of these supposed reports and any information documents that were coming across my desk during this process. So I was starting to laugh at, and now Sheldon's using it. All these people were using it. So that would be Loie, but yes, it resonates with me. So there we go. If it resonates with you, yeah, let's do it. Okay. So if you go back, you now have a declaration of certificate of satisfaction. Everyone's released. But then it becomes a question, okay, what do we do now? Right?
Yep.
Okay. So that is the last part, Article 3 of this declaration in order. And the CVACs really, this was done at the time the CVACs were done. So it's a very loose structure that honors and respects and holds up in all its glory of beingness, being. Okay? When I say absolute, being absolute, or absolute anything, it's the whole of it. The yin and the yang, the contrast, the light, the dark, all just one, brought back lovingly into one. Okay, so if you go into this Article 3, this is a declaration in order. And yeah, some people are going to sit there and go, same thing as what we heard during the investigations. Everyone kept saying, well, what gall does she have? What, especially amongst the prosecutors, the DOJ, all those guys. And they're all trained to believe that they're better than someone else, right? They have to be able to do the job that they are tasked with. And so when you read this, I would like for everyone to know, and maybe they'll get it through the words as they read it here with us, everyone in my heart, all I see are the eternal hearts. Everyone is the same. Everyone is equal. For me, I don't use the word divine in the sense that everyone is divine, because I know that something has to exist that's not divine in order to support it. So for me, I use the words absolute. Okay? And that was thanks to Caleb. Caleb really helped that contrast regarding divine, and the fact that, somebody was going to have to play that undivine role. That didn't resonate with any of us. Okay, so Creator, now that the contract's finished, the universal contract of this experiment, the sacred agreements that allowed the divines to create this hierarchy. You can put it in any context of religion you want. I don't like to discuss religions because for me they are tools of harvesting. And that I learned through banking. I mean, I've been involved in the machinations of those particular tools through a being sense. Growing up, every school I went to was some kind of religious foundation, and none of it resonated with me. So what do you do now that this universal contract is done of experiencing duality or separation or contrast without remembering because you chose to forget? Well, now it's time for everyone to remember. So this Article 3 is a declaration in order. It's a repurposing of all manifestations, because if something exists, Source doesn't waste anything. Just because something looks broken in your mind, your perception of being old or handicapped or debilitated or mentally ill, that there's no value. There's nothing in this Source's universe that is created that doesn't have some value. And if you look at it in the pattern of all the creation's universe, Source's universe, every part contains the whole of First Source. every part. That's why it only took one. That's the template. It only takes one. But it's so much more fun with everyone. Okay, so in Article 3, there's a declaration in order to repurpose any and all manifestations in creation's universe. Any meat suits, as Nicole Matthews would put it, any souls having experiences in meat suits, the human body, or any kind of manifestation you can think of, because it's not just the earth, it's not just humans going through all this experience. And that's what it is. It's a repurpose from the image of self to being self. Being, just being. That has value. You being has value. So hopefully that puts into context the last 2 months of me saying just be, just do. The importance and the significance of it is absolute. Okay? So being self, being absolute love. Love is a frequency, a measurable frequency. It's an energetic pattern. And believe me, that word, look for that pattern.
Sorry, I was just going to say that one of the pieces that fell into place on reading was exactly why people have said for many years who can read this stuff and are connected in this way that it's standing room only up there to get in, to incarnate here on Earth at this time, and why the interdimensionals and extraterrestrials are apparently so focused on this planet right now is because the freeing of creation, the completion of this duality experiment had to happen here. And from here it reverberates or echoes or whatever right throughout creation. That's what I got. And the enormity of the task, the weight of the task that each and every one of us took on by agreeing to this experiment unconsciously, consciously choosing to be unconscious about the experiment. The weight of it, I literally physically crumbled for a second, and then the weight lifted, and it was huge. I mean, my body, in fact, felt like it was going to actually lift off the ground. It was that feeling like when you get a cast off and your arm or your leg just wants to float up in the air. That's what my whole body did, because the weight of all of this just lifted, and it all made so much sense.
Well, did the weight appear to you as it is, which is an illusion? I mean, you're weightless.
Yes.
You're weightless, so that is freedom. And just by reading a document, it's just a piece of paper. But words are a vehicle of transferring or delivering energy. So these documents, when I write them, or when anyone says or speaks words, they have power because it's a vehicle of energy. That's it. So that is what this is about, Lisa. It's just being. And I'm so happy to have you share that experience of feeling that weight just lift off, because that is the weight of that duality in through the filter that the powers that were want you to think it is, which is a shackle, and it's not. You're getting it. And these documents are to be read with the eternal heart. These documents were for the eternal heart, a notice saying it's the moment. It's the moment, and I'm going to stand here regardless of what anyone says. Caleb was standing there regardless of what anyone said. So was Randall, but there were so many more. Well, now it's time to know about each other and to see each other and remember with each other. And there's not just 7+ billion of these eternal hearts. Imagine through all of Source's universe how many eternal hearts there are. And even the perceived powers that were have the eternal hearts within them. And believe me, they're quite upset because the eternal hearts are having quite a lot of fun with their embodiment right now. All the eternal hearts are keeping their promises. Their promise to end this particular experience of separation, number one, but especially separation without knowing, the veil of forgetting, whatever you want to call it. Does that make sense of what just finished?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I know that you have a lot of listeners that have questions, or you guys have questions, so I'm going to get through this last part here very carefully but efficiently, okay? Because this is where we are now. So the bondservants, the eternal hearts, this is their moment. And the eternal hearts are you guys, me, all of us, all of Source's universe. And the bondservant says, yep, lovingly, knowingly, willingly, and intentionally, I immediately reconcile images of self. Once again with Source, meaning I remember I am Source. I'm going to reconcile all of these contrasts, all of these separations back into the absolute. I'm going to put that engine of absolute back together now. That's what's been going on since December. Okay?
Yes.
And at this point, this is where the bondservant says what they're going to do. Any and all manifestations created an image of self, that illusion that it's just image of self, are lovingly, knowingly, willingly, intentionally, and immediately declared as free of further obligation. Meaning the embodiments, those that really remove themselves from the eternal heart or try to close their eyes and say, eternal heart's not here, doesn't exist, right? If you're thinking about it as my 3-year-old plays this game. That eternal heart is, its duty is to first bring that embodiment back to remembering self, removing the veil from within, as well as helping others, the other eternal hearts. So if you have a hard time with an embodiment, a judge, or whatever cloak they may be wearing, if you perhaps look at the eternal heart within them, just imagine it. Play a game of make-believe if you must. But if you imagine that eternal heart, I know you will be amazed at what occurs before you at that moment. That's really what I was doing at the end of the investigation stage back in June of last year. And it was an amazing experience.
You're referring to how they respond to you?
Yeah, the judges, the sheriffs, the attorneys, the bankers. It's an amazing experience to see all of a sudden someone drop their entire defensive stance and listen to the words that were being spewed out a second before change into something softer, something deeper, something more human, personable. Like, wow, did he just remember I'm a human being just like him? Or that he's a human being just like me? It's these quick moments, and if you don't stop and be aware of these moments, you may just miss it and not be able to participate in it consciously. So that's why being is so important. Know who you be and lovingly be aware of what others be. Okay? So being was huge. I mean, you guys hated it when I would say, go within, look within. What can I do? Be. And yet it was the absolute truth. What else am I supposed to say? So this is the whole last part of this document. It's about being. The bondservants, the eternal hearts are declaring, yeah, we're going to go in and finish our job just as we promised. The promise of First Source, the promise of the Creator, however you want to call it, was to end this game. Okay, so the manifestations in Article 3, Section A, and its subparts 1, 2, and 3, says I'm going to do that. I'm going to reconcile, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure these manifestations lovingly, knowingly, willingly know that they can come back within, absent any kind of judgment whatsoever. They are absolutely loved for the job they did, which they weren't really conscious of. And that's what the powers that were really afraid of, judgment. And the divines are really scared, fearful, in whatever sense or vibration, energetic pattern that would exist in of judgment. You know, it's like Saint Germain. Everybody loves the idea of Saint Germain. Everyone loves the idea of all this gold that he's been holding. Well, you know, not releasing, just the words. I mean, how does that resonate with you? Because what image pops into your mind when you hear that? Releasing, holding.
Who or what are they afraid this judgment will come from?
All the beings, the powers that were in their multidimensional, the higher, the wizards behind the curtain, all of Source's universe. So if there's 7+ billion people on this planet, imagine. Through all the multiverses and superverses, and you know, there's been a manipulation of the energy, an embezzlement of the energy that's been going on.
An embezzlement of the energy. That's a great way of putting it.
Okay, so here we go. That's that section. The bondservants, the eternal hearts, repeating, yes, we are going to do our job, and we're going to do it lovingly, without damage to any other. You know, who was that person? I can't remember their name, with Drake, talking about OPPT. I just love it, because if they really don't think OPPT is good, and it's irrelevant what they think or whether it is good or not. The point is what resonates within you. Just don't talk about it, you know? And I love the fact they're talking about it, because it brings consciousness into a person to say, hey, what do I be? I don't care. OPPT is a tool. The trustees are just wielding the tool right now, only until the people pick it up and say, let me do that. Let me try it. You know, the tool of being. Okay. So if you go into B, the creator says yes. Immediately, I declare that to the repurpose of manifestations by free will choice, that they, without judgment of what the embodiments have done in this play, the role that they have been playing, they're all taken back into the fold of Source, just lovingly, without any judgment. And they can repurpose themselves how they choose, as long as they aren't going to damage anyone else. And that's in Article 3, Section B. With absolute truth, knowledge, standing, authority, value, rights, and laws of creation. You guys can now choose how you want to be and do all these manifestations that forgot who they were on purpose in order to do the universal contracts. Well, those are over now. So now be. But you need to do it with absolute truth, absolute knowledge, your absolute standing of being Source, your absolute authority. Well, that, as you can imagine, didn't go over well with the wizards behind the curtain, because they're feeding off of and harvesting your energy right now. So the last thing they want is absolute data to be put on the table, because they forgot how to reconnect with Source. So this is what the purpose of this document is for them to know they can go back at any moment, at any time, and their eternal heart that's embodied in them is going to make sure they reconnect with Source regardless of their choice. Because the first choice of eternal heart, bondservant, was to know the separation, and once that separation was known, to put the whole engine of absolute back together. So it's a done deal. It's already done. It was done before the game of duality or the experience or the experiment of duality and separation even began. This is the end game of the eternal hearts, okay? So the only requirement is that you be what you be, you do what you be. The only rule is don't damage any other. That's it. That's the only rule. Okay, so C is the big one. Article 3, Section C was the big one. And this will lead into the manipulation of the Akashic records that we'll go over. That's something new, at least as far as knowledge of it. Okay?
Okay.
So in that Section C, part of that was cut off of the UCC filing, although it was all of this was registered in the UCC registry, so it's all sitting there. By creator, experiencing by creation, knowingly, lovingly, knowingly, willingly, and intentionally, and immediately disclose and make absolutely known within each manifestation, said manifestation, one, being self, which is what the last 2 months have been, really, is us remembering that we be self, right?
Yeah.
And then two, the record of creation. The Akashic records, those are one form, and like I said, I'll go into the manipulation of those particular records, but there's a mirror set that are unaltered. They are absolutely just what is, and those are what I refer to as the record of creation. They are unaltered, unmanipulated, and they record every movement, every happening of energy, inclusive of all the doing of the wizards behind the curtain and a manipulation of other records. Okay? 3, and the energy grid, patterns and manuals of creation for knowledge and use of absolute truth. Basically, the manual that would have been great in taking apart this machine of absolute, the one where we agreed to forget so we could experience the joy of remembering. And the energy grid is what everything operates on. The internet is basically just a fractal of that energy grid. Your cell phone and cellular towers, those are all just an image of the actual energy grid. Your computers, your being itself are an image of that energy grid. So this will be a moment after tonight where everyone starts to really learn about these things. I would love for you guys to all get to know G.W. Harding and a man with a lot of experiences, the guys that were in the Montauk Project, all of these scientists, and my beloved DARPA boys, former DARPA boys that are in underground hiding because they're tired of things being stolen from all of humanity. And then being brought forth by the golden child or the chosen one of the powers that were, saying here's some new technology when in fact it's always existed. And the powers that were have always had access to it. But they got to give you something to keep you happy, keep you in your seat, right? Hoping that you'll just play the game a little longer. Hoping that maybe you'll choose to be the undivine in their divine game so it can continue. Okay, so these are the 3 things which are the heart of it. You guys get absolute data, you get absolute context, you get absolute access to all that is. So C is the big dog in that particular section, saying here's all the tools. You get to have access to all the tools that are your rightful energetic pattern source. And so there you go, guys. That really is the heart of that entire document. And the manifestation, it only takes one of the fractals to accept it. In this particular case, we had Randall, myself, and Caleb. And actually, with Randall held the contrast. We've noticed through the entire process, the entire work of OPPT, there will always be someone that holds the other side so that the absolute reconciliation can take place. So if you have light, you're going to have dark. Just until you accept it, you acknowledge it, and all you have to do is just let it go at that point. Let the separation go, not the dark. Just let the separation go so that the dark can be rejoined with the light and the light with the dark. Then it's absolute, and it changes. It's called the law of neutrality, and it changes the actual energetic pattern so that it harmonizes once again. It's a very simple process. We can go over it here in a moment. But that's what this document does. And the manifestation says, yes, I want to play with these new terms and conditions, which are I get to be however I choose by my free will. And I accept the one condition, which is don't harm, don't damage any other. And there's your document.
There's your document. In the story.
Yes, just like that. There it is.
Thank you.
Heather Eller.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm getting Skype messages, personal Skype messages of people just, they're in tears of joy. They're, they feel like they're waking up in this very moment. Thanking me, thanking you, thanking everybody who's participated. And it's just a beautiful thing. Do you want to take calls? Do you want to take questions from?
Yeah, can I just say one quick thing?
Yeah.
I give my gratitude for all of you. This last 2 months, the whole darn time has not been easy, but the last 2 months specifically, I really hope that this has provided you with closer to absolute context, if not absolute context, in my statements. Those of Caleb and Randall, and I really extend my absolute gratitude to all of you for being and doing. And I do hope that you remember the full weight of those words, the energy that those words are delivering. I really thank you.
And we return in kind.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if everybody just takes a moment and reflects on the sequence of events in their own, for them personally, because it'll be different for everybody, but in terms of their own understanding and their insights and their knowledge about what's going on here with the One People's Public Trust, how they came about the documents, which document, in what order, you'll see a perfect pattern of your own unfolding. And that's what it has been for me, and I know it has been for others when I've had this conversation, that they wouldn't have understood, step 3 if it hadn't been so perfectly, if step 1 and 2 hadn't been so perfectly laid. And
understanding the powers that were needed in integration period 2, because they thought they weren't even experiencing the duality experience. They were going to help you ascend out of it, and yet now they're finding themselves that they were actually a huge part of it. So they needed a couple months to integrate this information, and some of them tried to hide it from their galactic commanders, their brokers down here on the ground. So just understand, maybe now you might be able to just see the eternal heart within them a little bit easier as well. So you're not the only ones. In fact, you guys got it quicker than the powers that were, the wizards behind the curtain. You let go of things a lot faster than they are. So you'll be helping them instead of what they're proffering that they're going to be helping you ascend. Because it's just a matter of acceptance. And we can go in that later. So you go ahead and run the call how you want now.
Well, what I was going to say was just then that vision, that I call it my beast vision, was the shock and surprise, the complete unexpected turn of events according to the beast. And there was this recognition of, oh my God, kind of thing. And now what it feels like is the curtain's been pulled back, and the powers that were are all standing around, running around caught with their pants down. And the only thing left for us right now is to just open our eyes and see it. And now that this experiment has been completed, there is no script for them to run on anymore. And they're trying to make it up as they go along, and they're scrambling.
Especially when you understand a little bit, you have more data to operate on, and you know what they're doing. Yeah, now do you understand why I was so excited and in a fever for 3 days? Because you finally were getting it, but you got it on your own. You guys didn't know about this filing. You did it on your own.
Whew.
That's why I was excited like a schoolgirl.
Bob, did you want to say something? Felt like you did.
Unmute.
That was me. This is Brian. I'm speechless, so I have nothing to say.
I'm sorry, I was muted. I don't. There really are no words. I'm. The realization that you're finally at the end, and I liken it to like running a marathon because it's what it kind of felt like. Even though it all happened in one moment, it felt like a marathon, and to finally cross the finish line, to realize that it's over. Yeah.
It's not over. The fun's just started.
The fun part begins.
Yeah, now comes the fun.
Mm.
And we've earned it.
Heather, I have one further question for you. I mean, this is obviously a really, really significant moment for all of us, for obvious reasons. And how does this moment affect the powers that were, though? I mean, they're trying to decide their own fate, as it were, in the background there. The fact that they know that we now know what's going on, how will that affect them?
Well, it already is affecting them. You're seeing it now. Maybe you'll be able to put it in absolute context. Some of the moves that have been made and reported on, but a lot of information, data was withheld from you. They know the energetic patterns. They know it's what I call the energetic accounting. All the energetic accounting is being done in cosmos, call it whatever you want, but it's all there. And you guys are the ones that have the power to make it happen in a twinkling of an eye where everything just switches. And it's just a matter, you don't have to understand all the machine, the parts and bits of the machine. The fact is, just accept what is there, and then it'll all be shown to you because it's all within you guys. The whole database of entire eternal records of everything that's been going on, it's all within you. That's what your tools of resonance are trying to teach you is, hey, it's already within me. It's already within me, and you recognize it. So it's not for anyone to tell you what something is. It's the real relationship is where one assists another in knowing and remembering within. So the powers that were, okay, here's what's been going on behind the curtain. Saint Germain, the dragons, everyone, they're all trying to shuffle the agenda of harvesting, keeping the energy because they're not connected with source by their own free will choice. They've been taking all the energy from you guys in various forms and tools of harvesting. You know, if you want to get real simple with it, Facebook was a fun one that I had at least a brief moment to experience. It's a great harvesting tool that they've been using, and yet you guys went in and changed the whole energetic pattern of Facebook. In that matter of however long I was there, I at least got to experience it. You guys have been doing it for a long time. Now you can consciously know and go in there, and whatever you write, those are your words, your vehicle of delivering your energy. But be careful, because you may just get kicked off of Facebook. Now, the powers that were, the divine, I don't know if you've noticed in most of their releases lately, they've been releasing the divine plan, we're here to show you so you can share in the experience of the foundations we're creating. We're here to assist you in being galactic members, you know.
We are the masters of ascension.
Yeah, at this point, you turn the tables on us. You know, at this point, what resonates with you? If you understand that this is a moment of reconciling the separations back to one, if something is divine, means that something has to be non-divine, ask yourself if you're willing to play that undivine role. You know, so I choose to look at it as absolute. Thanks to Caleb holding that contrast, and Randall as well. What resonated with me and with them was that it's absolute. Absolute. Oneness. Equality. And you go from separation to equality, and then from equality you realize it's one. Okay? That's at least an explanation of that. So the powers that were have had to change their story so many times. They were so ready to launch basically the RVs of these currencies and gold back. That's the fun part. The gold's been free since December 10th. That's why I work so hard to assist you guys in finding out what resonates with you, that you be, but also everything around you, including gold and silver. Does it be? Most people don't know the bankers test the DNA of gold when it comes in to identify whose gold it supposedly is. They go in and do DNA testing of the gold. Well, DNA as we know it means that it's something living, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the gold has been free, and the gold is known that it's been free because it's an energetic pattern. It has no will or want to harvest anything from anyone. And now you can kind of maybe understand the pickle that the powers that were are in, because here they are claiming they have a gold-backed currency, yet if gold is a slave to it, and yet gold has actually been free, that's why they've been questioning and haven't launched their announcements, which were supposed to first occur, when was it, Super Bowl weekend?
Mm-hmm.
Then again, it was supposed to be a couple of Sundays ago, another Sunday after that. They're backpedaling because they know, the divines, the wizards behind the curtain know, once they make their move and announce something that is not absolute, they're going to be reconciled with the energetic accounting. Now that you guys know what's going on and you have more data, and more data will come, okay? There's a lot of data that's there. And those that have been the keepers of that data, a lot of them within the system, the slavery systems themselves, are going to be bringing that out. And that's why it was so important that you guys be. Because the stronger you are in your knowing of being, the more that you're going to stand there and guard that space so that everyone else can be too, right? So the powers that were have been going back and forth. Now you have a statement, I think Fulford, a statement was passed through Fulford that Saint Germain is actually joined with the dragons a couple of years ago or years ago. You know, these divines are moving around not sure what to do because you guys took them off script by being. And you gave them notice of what you be by your doing. So they're totally off script. They have no idea what to play now because they're scared that the energetic accounting is going to occur, and it already has occurred. It's just being visible now. So that was the point of them having some time to be able to make a different choice. Now that you guys know, when the data comes, you'll just be able to look within, use your tools of resonance, and you'll be able to determine what resonates with you, what doesn't. I trust in the eternal heart.
Heather, you said that the powers that were are still harvesting energy, and that they've forgotten how to reconnect with Source, and in fact they seem to fear that process. What will it take to remind them of how they can reconnect?
You guys. It's you guys that they're fearful of. You have to understand, maybe that's what needs to come on the table is, you know, what is Earth? Why is everyone so focused on Earth if you're talking cosmically? You know, if you're talking duality and separation, is it that unfathomable that heaven would have a duality? Is it unfathomable to think that even heaven itself was split in separation multiple times over? Okay, not just one planet, not just one universe within that Source's universe. It just happened to be that Earth was the one that was able to reach that stage of energetic. I mean, the divines were so scared when things just weren't going according to plan. Earth and the people turned out to be an anomaly, something they couldn't explain. That's the power of the eternal hearts. And everyone in Source's universe is conspiring for this moment. All the eternal hearts are conspiring for this moment. Even those eternal hearts embodied in the powers that were. So, like I said, I don't care what choice they make. Just make a choice. Because either way, they cannot change absolute truth. They cannot change absolute.
Well, given that the terms of this filing state very clearly that all manifestations, all of them, immediately and unconditionally are accepted without judgment and absolute love in their repurposing, is that not enough for them? They can simply end it and walk.
Yes, that should be enough for them, but see, it's you guys. You being is so powerful. If you know the power of your being, your words, you can create and manifest at the speed of eternal heart. You can create the speed of word. You can create at the speed of thought. You can create at the speed of doing. And the power that you be is something they have not even obtained yet. So if you are looking for your pitchfork and going out and searching for blood, by God, that is what is going to occur. That's why it's so important for you to know who you be, so you can make informed decisions. If you show love and peace, and I'm not saying don't hold things accountable, hold things accountable. There's an energetic accounting already happening. Hold things accountable, but do it in such a way, treat others as you want to be treated. If you make a mistake, Chris, and you realize what that mistake is, would you fix it if you could?
Of course.
Okay? And even if someone was very upset with you and wanted your head on a pike, would you still want to correct it and hope that it'll work out for the best and that your head won't end up on the pike?
Of course.
Okay, that's the moment they're in right now. And you guys, all of us, understanding who we be and the choices we're going to make at this moment, after tonight's show, from here on out, that's what they're looking for. And if you want it reconciled in a twinkling of an eye, it doesn't mean sit there and go, oh, okay, I'll just forget everything you did. No, remember everything they did, but choose how you're going to deal with it. And all I can say is, for me, treating others how I want to be treated, that's sort of the rule I go by. But others got to resonate with what is within them. And that's the beauty of free will choice.
For me, it's gratitude that they held the contrast, that they played the role that they played in order to support this experiment. Without it, we wouldn't have achieved it.
Well, is that contrast necessary or chosen by you any longer now that you know about it?
No, but thank you. Take your bat and ball and go home.
There you go.
That's also my absolute choice. Thank you. Job well done by everybody. It's time to go and play another game.
Agreed.
Like soccer or something.
Prior to this document coming out, one of the things I was going to talk about was, putting a call out, because we know that there are powers that were who want to make the choice, who have made a choice within themselves to do the right thing, in quote unquote, but they are scared, as you say, pitchforks and mobs. But to put a call out to them to assist us in getting on mainstream media, because the sooner, the more people who hear this, and the more accepting we can be of who they be, the safer they are.
Well,
like on last week's
point. That's the point, though. Is okay. Yes, that would make it a lot faster, a lot easier for them, but that's their free will choice. And your guys' being is not reliant on MSM picking something up or not.
Yeah.
You could have gotten the word out there. In 2 months' time, you've done what every politician dreams of doing, getting the word out and gathering the support. But it's support of being. It resonated with you guys. That's why you clicked on. It was all about you. It was already within you. This moment has been pre-planned by your eternal heart, and your eternal hearts are acting on it. They're recognizing it. Now they're making themselves visible to you, and so that you can realize that you are the eternal heart.
Heather?
Yeah.
Can you do me a favor? Could you address, go backtrack to what you started discussing with the Akashic Records? I think that is an important piece of all of this.
Yes, and also the creation records. This is American Kabuki, by the way.
Hi, AK.
Hi, AK. Hi, Dee. Yeah, okay. So if you look back at certain reports and data that have come out since January 17th, because that's really when Saint Germain and the rest of the wizards behind the curtain kind of started to stamp their feet. And they've had this integration period. They've been assisted in all dimensions to understand everything that we've just gone over. And essentially, energy, just as you see energy being manipulated here on this planet, energy can be manipulated by withholding data. And I can't remember which report that came out about certain records being ordered and going through the records. It's because certain particular parts within those multi-dimensions realize something's not right. Something has been withheld. Because the divines keep putting out these plans, giving all these orders, and changing them at the last minute, but with no explanation. So your military has been going crazy on this planet, trying to figure out what's going on. Your galactics have been going crazy, trying to figure out what's going on. And someone finally went in and just ordered the Akashic Records to go through them to see what is missing, what is not there. And this UTC filing is an example in one dimension of how records are manipulated. The filing itself is missing a really key piece, which is Article 2, I believe. No, Article 3, Section C. However, in the registry, it's all there. That's one example. It's sort of like when Pelosi handed that huge bill over to Congress and said, here you go, and did it, 3 hours before they were supposed to vote on it, and yet 300 pages were missing. And some of them stood up and said, how can we even vote on this bill if 300 pages are missing? It doesn't matter, just vote on it. And then the whole record gets put into the congressional record. Well, it's the same thing here. The certain parts of the multi-dimensions, the sources universe, that are conspiring to make sure that all this goes through, this end of duality, in one sense, the end of the experiment, realize that some data has been withheld from even them. You know, I laughed because Sheldon Neidl had, with the military, because if people understood that the military were now working with Sheldon Neidl, it would actually lend some more credibility to Sheldon, wouldn't it? However, that data has been withheld. And yet even Sheldon was referring to the sacred agreement. Well, the sacred agreement's been over since December 10th. I didn't say anything to you guys because there were certain parts that needed to really come from within before this could be revealed in the manner that it's being revealed now. And now that you understand, the universal contracts are those sacred agreements between the eternal heart and anything that is made under there. So those have been done. So now you've got to kind of ask yourself regarding the cosmos, boy, even those guys were hoodwinked. And they know it. So they're going back through the Akashic records and they're finding that some of the data was not there. That's why there are the records of creation, what I call the eternal records, where every piece of energy movement has been recorded, unaltered, unfabricated. unmanipulated. Those are the records that were ordered released. The divines don't want that known because if their doing and their manipulations of those Akashic records are known, and that there's a whole nother set that can be relied on that are clean and clear and being held by the eternal hearts, which are ready for release, they're going to want to see and compare both of them, right? Put all the data on the table. That's what's happening at this moment for the last, 14, 15 hours. So really, in all of the dimensions, the powers that were, the wizards behind the curtain, are being exposed. But I ask you a question. How do you want to deal with that? Do you want to get your pitchfork, or do you want to just move on and say, okay, great game, now let's play something else and create what you want to experience now by your free will? That's what's on the table.
Well, I personally don't have a pitchfork, so I'm not interested.
I think those are actually legal under the Homeland Security Act.
Probably, yes.
I think we often, in our experience of life, and we've said, I wouldn't wish that experience on my worst enemy. So.
I don't have a pitchfork, but I do have a little pointy finger. And the way I see at this point, the contract ended on the 10th of December. They knew that beyond that point, they were on their own personal recognizance. They're taking full personal liability for everything that they do. Prior to that, it was an agreed situation. Now it's not. They actually seem to have tried to hide the fact, to minimise, if you like, the comeback at them. They've tried to hide this in the Akashic record. So I would say to them, sure, our contractual obligations are over, but from beyond this point, harm to the one people, there might be some judgment there. So be careful, and don't continue for much longer.
Make your choice and make it now.
Make your choice and make it now. But we've had this 2 months period to adapt, and we now all understand why there was this apparent delay to things. But it's time to decide, folks.
You know, Caleb, Chris, we were accountability, changing the judicial system, right? Where those that are actually perpetrating the crime actually sit in judgment over others, was just so humorous. But what do? What kind of system of accountability you put in there? And Caleb actually had a very wonderful experience that he shared with us, and it resonated with me absolutely. When you choose your action, you're also choosing the consequence or judgment. So his example is a cousin had stolen from him, and he went to his aunt, the mother of his cousin, and said, what do I do? You know, he stole from me, and I've been supporting him, helping him, assist him so he could get on his feet. And she was like, well, honey, he already told you what the judgment is. He already told you what's going to happen by his very choice to steal in the first place. You know, so Caleb, it resonated with him, and he just said, I'm sorry, you got to go. You abused me. Now you got to go. And that's the point. When they chose their actions, they also chose the consequence. So all we have to do is lovingly, perhaps, assist them in just taking the consequence that they chose. They'll take it. It's an energetic thing, guys. So enforcement, everyone keeps asking about enforcement. I've given you multiple examples without trying to tell you those were examples. Being is one of them. Knowing that the data is another, because when someone knows they're under a microscope, they act a lot differently than if they think nobody's looking, right? And another example was I sent you guys over the Galloping Gertie example, the Narrows Bridge, Tacoma Narrows Bridge, the very first one. And the wind went in and literally played those support wires like a harp and made the concrete dance, literally dance, until it could no longer withstand the movement, and it fractured and then broke. So enforcement comes in many ways. Just don't limit with your expectation of what enforcement is. all of Source's universe is conspiring and assisting in the enforcement of the consequences of the choices that were made. That's the grace period that's been going on, is for everyone to make a different choice. Does that answer your question?
Indeed,
So how
it does.
about this? How about we say, we would rather not play baseball with you anymore because you cheat. We'll still do your own baseball diamond, a la Field of Dreams, but it'll be on the moon.
I think you just did.
So if all that's left now for us is to be and do, what for all of us that are motivated and inspired by helping others to understand and know this truth from within, what's the best way to help the masses understand that all that is left is to be and do? Those that have no idea fundamentally yet or consciously yet what being and doing might look like.
Well, number one, just keep being and doing what you've been doing, which is getting the word out, number one. But number two, even within the last, 14, 15 hours, guys, the whole Source's universe has gotten data that once wasn't known. So now you're going to see everyone waiting for heaven's order and all this other stuff. Now you're going to start to see people saying, like the emails that we've been getting over the last week or so, stop talking about the RV. Stop talking. I even got emails from the galactic side saying, be careful, use code words. Don't talk about disclosure with a big D in the title heads. Just cover it up. Well, we already have the contrast of secret squirrel. We've already got the contrast of withholding data. So how do you neutralize that? By transparency. Choose to focus your energy on the old, or you can choose to focus your energy on what is now and what you want now to be. Go in and make your systems. What kind of systems do you want? Well, right now it's about putting absolute data on the table, right? Mm-hmm. So the systems probably, and that's why they're so temporary, is because the CVAC was made temporary because the first job of the day is to put all the absolute data on the table. And then let people choose by their free will what resonates within. So education. Put all the data you have about education on the table, whether it be quote-unquote new age or whether it be quote-unquote alternative or conservative. Put it all on the table and let people choose what resonates with them. Systems of health. Put all the data on the table. Oxygen chambers, crystalline chambers, synthetic medicines. Put it all on the table and let people choose what resonates with them. But just get all the absolute data. That is the interim job of the CVACs, is just to put absolute data on the table. So, create those systems.
So is the CVAC where this absolute data is going to be coming from? I'm just wondering, because there's been a lot of data that's come out, but there's a lot of people that are very untrustworthy out there, and they're very reluctant to trust the source of where data is coming from. So from a position of knowing from within that absolute data is discernible as truth, I'm kind of curious as to what major source that this absolute data is going to be coming from.
Okay, well, that's an excellent question. That's why it's so important for, instead of anonymous sources bringing data forth, you want to see where the data is coming from, right? So if you get an anonymous source that gives you a piece of data versus in the medical field, let's just say, and all of a sudden you have data that's coming from someone who worked in the chemical labs, the labs that test for the FDA, the chemicals, they're coming forward telling you these were bad. We were told to alter the data. We were told to push it so it could make as much profit as possible. Use vaccinations, for instance. And you have Gates over here pushing vaccinations. And all of a sudden you have someone from the financial sector saying, yep, he's invested a lot of money in vaccinations. He's invested a lot of money in technologies to alter the energetic patterns of being. You know, all of a sudden, when you know who's bringing the data forth and they're willing to stand in absolute transparency, you're going to be able to resonate or not with that data. You already know what the absolute truth is, Brian. Everyone has it within them. That's what your tools of resonance are trying to tell you, to show you. So it's just a matter of absolute transparency. Whoever brings the data forth has to do so in transparency.
Got it.
With the CVAC, say a country says, okay, I want to get rid of my local cabal and utilize this CVAC vehicle to create a legitimate government. How do they go about contacting the CVAC and setting that up for the transition? Is that something the military does? Is that something the leader does?
Well, just take it back to prime being, right? It's about any individual, any eternal heart going in and saying, okay, I'm willing to stand there in responsibility with all liability for everything that I do. I'll be held accountable. And I'm willing to stand there and ensure that at this moment, the CVAC is going to go in and be a system of assistance for the people. And we've talked about right now what's most important for the people is absolute data, absolute disclosure, right?
Right.
Okay. Now that's going to change. Once all the absolute data there, your system of assistance is going, its purpose is going to change, is it not?
Yes.
Okay. So at this moment, really, it's just a matter of who's going to stand and say, I'm going to help bring absolute data to the table. And the whole template's been there for you guys. I haven't gone in and just said, okay, here's how it's going to go, because I don't want to tell you what to do. I don't want anyone else telling me what to do. So when you guys were ready, just as when you were ready for this particular December 10th document, it will revolve itself in the table and be right in your face so that you can say, I'm willing to do it. Now, a lot of people were like, okay, my expectations are the military has to be a part of this. My expectation is that MSM has to acknowledge and recognize this. The Hague has to acknowledge and recognize this. Well, guys, you have systems that have really gone in and manipulated and fabricated and commandeered those particular systems. So you need to make a decision. Can I be within myself and make whatever I want to happen, or do I have to have these external elements tell me it's okay for me to be? You know, governance is that wasn't necessarily the point of setting up government, because government itself, the word itself, carries so much negative energy that first it needs to be neutralized. That's what being does. It neutralizes the negativity pattern, the negative energetic pattern of I need to be governed. I need to be told what to do.
Yes, it implies coercion, I suppose.
Well, unfortunately, because that's all we've known for quite a while. Okay? So at this point, you guys all need to make a choice. Do I want to be governed, or do I just want the CVAC to be systems of assistance, to assist me in how I want to be?
Systems of assistance, absolutely. And is what you're saying that what needs to happen is people to step up and consciously, willingly choose to bond themselves to the CVAC as a public servant in order to activate it?
Well, it's not so much that, Lisa. It's a matter of just saying I'm willing to bond myself so that everyone else knows who I be and that I'll be responsible in my choices if they damage another. So the CVAC, you guys are each individually your own CVAC. That was the image I had that was coming to me when I and Caleb and Randall worked through those, was everyone essentially is really their own CVAC. But there's going to be like minds out there at some point that say, hey, I really like this, and you're going to have focus groups, so to speak, or groups that come together and say, I really want to focus my energy on this particular part of the machine, knowing that the absolute is all in its pieces, but it's a tool at this point. You know that. So everything works in harmony at that point. You know, so I could have easily, and we discussed this, a lot of what we did was, okay, at first we gave the opportunity for the powers that were to come in and exercise responsibility. Then especially October of 2012, we realized, they're too afraid, and we're not going to sit here and wait for them to do it. Let's just do it. So that's what October was about, was just saying, okay, guys, you had your chance. Now we're going to go in and do. And then, right now the only CVAC that was up and running, and it was only because, and it's, when I say running, I mean doing its job of bringing absolute truth to the table. Because that's all we've been doing for the last 2 months, right? Maybe slower than what you wanted, but, that's essentially what we've been doing very carefully. Otherwise, I know I could have gone in and issued paper, value represented by the paper, into all the banks. I could have gone in and cut deals with all of them. Before I went to Spain in January, or was it February? No, January. In January, I got a call regarding Gulliver from the head of HSBC, and wanting me to know that they were moving all these trillions in currency, paper, from HSBC. They were doing a job. They were trying to make things right. Well, a shuffling of the agenda doesn't work in absolute. You got to have absolute disclosure. You got to have absolute, not divine. Not when something else has to be undivine to support it. So, I applaud Gulliver, but then again, his hand was forced by the divine to do something to see if it would be acceptable. Well, the RVs are nothing. The RVs are based on lies and fraud in order to have that currency. Iraq is a great example. Dee and I have gone back and forth on this. All the natural resources were stolen from Iraq and put into multinational contracts. Not one thing in Iraq is owned by the Iraqis or, within that custodianship of the Iraqis. So if you're RVing something, you're actually profiting all the multinationals that hold, quote unquote, the titles and ownership of all those natural resources. So how can an RV go forward? That's one example.
Heather, we've been sitting here kind of waiting for the trustees to tell us when the CVACs would begin, and what you're telling us is that they'll begin when we start them. Correct?
They'll begin when you decide how you want to start them. I could have issued, I'm sitting in the presidency of the branch of the United States of America, and it only takes one branch to service all the people on the planet. I could have issued paper. I could have set up this treasury mechanisms for delivery, transaction, transfer. Here's the thing, though, and this is where the powers that were are kind of freaking out, is they were hoping we would, at worst case scenario, we would at least just go in and repossess their systems, because they had all these back doors that were created in them, just in case we somehow got a hold of them. Well, that's the point, though. Those are just really bastardizations of the prime, the absolute systems that exist. And that is what you guys will have access to. That's what was ordered in this December 10th document, the energy grid patterns and manuals of creation and knowledge. You will have absolute technology, and now that the quote-unquote cosmic elements of this whole adventure know that certain data has been withheld from them, they're going to be making some choices here very quickly. And I just hope that you, at this point, whatever reservations you've had regarding ETs, cosmics, divines, whatever, you'll be able to determine what is absolute truth and what is not, and you'll be able to determine how you want your experience to go. But it's your choice. So the CVACs were ready to go. We chose the first step to be putting absolute data on the table. That's why I did not issue the new systems, because this is a matter of you guys deciding what the systems are supposed to be. You're supposed to tell me, Chris.
That's what I'm saying. I realize that now. Yes, absolutely. And also, go ahead, Bob.
What I'm thinking, after listening to all of this, and I've been kind of quiet, and asking myself the question, because my whole life experience, I've had to go through a lot of different things. And I've had to go through, learning how to forgive myself. And how would I want to be treated if the shoe were on the other foot? I would want to be allowed the opportunity to make up for it, if that was my choice, and the opportunity to become something different. And I think if we allow them that opportunity, then because now they need to learn how to serve. And we do need someone who will be of service. It would give them an opportunity to work off all of that until they learn how to forgive themselves by being in service to others. Otherwise, they can choose to leave. Either would be
acceptable.
Okay with me. Yeah.
Well, and that's sort of the point, Bob, is that, look, guys, you can focus your energy on them now that they know you know, and you'll know more here now that this moment has been reached. You can either focus your energy on them, or you can focus your energy on how to be and show them how to be of service through your own example. Because the way that I see the CVACs when I wrote them was that there's 7+ billion people of service, one-on-one, and it starts within. I'm going to be of service to myself. That is why I've chosen the steps that I did. That's why Randall and Caleb chose the steps that they did. We could have easily have taken the bribes. We could have easily have taken the positions that they're hoping we would take, and we rejected them all because by serving ourselves, we ensure that our children would suffer the same fate that we had been suffering up to that moment. And that was unacceptable to any of us. So by serving others, we served ourselves in the process. Do you see how that goes?
Indeed. But
yes.
one of the things that I'd just like to inject in this conversation is maybe it's time that we offered the contrast. If we decide now that we're ready to start those CVACs and simply focus our energy on them, we don't need to be focusing energy on the powers that were. We're done focusing energy on those folks. We focus energy where we need it, and we'll be the contrast to them.
Well, that's
all
what
I can say.
That's why I kept saying just be. That is the contrast, isn't it?
It is. It is.
In the chat room, it's just open the CVACs. We want CVACs. Now for CVACs. Open the CVACs. It's just constant.
Well, and I've received people's versions of the CVAC, and it was really beautiful to watch. And I thank everyone for sending the emails. My inbox has officially had an epileptic seizure, and it is just revolting at all the work it's doing. So I just told it I love it. At the same time, I watched the evolution of how people first started out with the CVAC to how they are now. I'm really excited to see how they are even after hearing this call.
How have you seen them evolve? Can you be specific?
Yeah, it went from basically govern me, tell me what to do, to all of a sudden when I asked them to send in their version of the CVAC, all of a sudden they started to think about it. And actually they've been thinking about different kinds of beings all their life. So now they had a vehicle to put a tool to put that version of their beingness in there. So I've watched it evolve to essentially a pitchfork to saying, hey, you know what, I just want to be, and this is how I see it. However, I kept seeing still some remnants of, well, this is the best way to do it. This is the way that it should be done. Have you seen this particular information? This is the absolute truth. Well, for me, absolute truth is just having absolute data on the table and letting people resonate with what resonates within them. So I'm hoping that after this call, everyone will be able to see a little bit more data, and then perhaps at that point, the CVACs will be ready to launch. You know?
And just to remind everybody, the way that they're launched is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Heather, the way that they're actually launched is simply the bonding of the first public servant, the president, contractually.
Yeah, And the president, guys, whatever label you want to put on it, I don't really care. The point is, everyone's a president. In the CVAC system, the way it runs is everyone ends up being a president because they bond themselves for being responsible of what they're going to do. And if everyone just focuses on bringing absolute data to the table, then with the absolute data, they can choose how the systems of assistance need to be after that. It's an evolving, living, organic process. It doesn't have to be this set in stone.
No. Well, the contracts are, to begin with, they're rolled over every 3 months.
Yeah, my contract is about to end. I hopefully have done a pretty good job up to this point as far as just getting the exposure, the absolute data. And you know what? It wasn't even me. It was, as you can see, almost like a Calgon commercial. And they tell their friend, and they tell their friend. All of a sudden, you guys are all being. I'm hoping at this point you guys understand the concepts of being, the concepts of doing what you be, and the power that has within it. Okay? And then at that point, when you guys stand up and you just say, well, what the hell? If I make a mistake, I'll correct it. But here we go. I'm going to be responsible. Everyone is a president. The president was just a word that was used so that people could recognize what it was stopping on one side and what it was preserving in that space for you to be as you choose.
So everyone is a public servant.
And as I was writing all this, that's what I saw, was that everyone was a servant to themselves as long as they didn't damage any other, and that, hell, you have a system that's one-on-one. How hard is it for you to get anyone from AT&T on the phone or any kind of government agency? You can't speak to a live person. And then when you do, they say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not the one you need to speak to. Well,
or the computer won't let me do that.
You know.
That's my favorite.
Can I restate this and see if I understand this correctly?
Yep.
The CVACs are kind of like containers, right? And say it could be as big as a nation, or it could be as small as, say, if you had an organization that wanted to bring fresh water to Sahara, that could be a CVAC too. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, take it back even further though. It could just be one person saying, this is how I'm going to operate. I'm going to give you notice of it. And for now, that notice is done on the UCC because it stops by you just registering what you are on that UCC, and which is already done, by the way, because it's about being. You give notice to everyone else, and it doesn't mean you have to agree with anyone. It doesn't mean you have to be like anyone else. It just means you be. Just don't damage anyone while you're doing it.
Okay, because
CVACs are as small as one person.
I think I got confused because I guess I got used to this idea that there was going to be these interim governments, and I thought the CVAC was that. I think and I think that's where I got confused on what they exactly were. And I never realized these are like virtual shells for financing and doing things.
Yeah, but AK, could that be because for how long have we been hearing about interim governments?
Oh, for ages.
Yeah.
Okay. So if that's what you guys want, that's what you decide. Whoever signs on to that particular concept, that's what it be. That's okay.
Guys, I hate to do this, but we have a minute and a half to go.
Yeah, the question
we can go over for a couple of minutes, but it will probably stop after that. Heather, we need to have you back on next week if we can, please.
Yeah.
This conversation needs to continue.
Yeah. The question I have for you, Heather, is how do we sign up?
Well,
do we apply?
Do we? Of the bonds that I did, I'll give them to you again so you can repost them. That's just an example, but really it's whatever resonates with you. As long as you have the elements that you'll be responsible for what you do, you'll be held liable for what you do under common law, under universal law, then we're good to go. Because that universal law covers all of the cosmic groups as well, so that when they feel comfortable knowing that you're going to be held responsible, if you harm or damage them, all of a sudden you're going to have that big disclosure that you guys have been wanting. So I'll send out the templates that I did that actually are in the system, and you can do as you are moved to do.
Okay, and contractually applying for one of the entities that you've set aside 195 CVACs nominally for areas.
Yeah, you guys can set up the country ones if you want. My only concern at this point is that people are because they're going through this transition of understanding, they may misuse them and try to tell you how to be.
Okay. That's the next conversation.
Okay.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you.
Thank you.
From my eternal heart to yours. And from my eternal heart to everybody listening and who will listen. And please spread the recording of this far and wide. Join us again next week on the Opt-In show on Monday night or Tuesday morning at 11. And, of course, next week on the Collective Imagination show. And this conversation is ongoing, clearly. Thank you to everyone who's joined us, Bob, Chris, Dee, AK, Brian. See you guys all very shortly, I'm sure, in a post-show chat. Thanks, Heather. I don't know what else to say, but thank you. So,
I love you guys.
And
we love you, Heather.
Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Love you guys.
Blog Talk Radio.
At this pivotal time in humanity's evolution, we are beginning to remember. At this pivotal time in humanity's evolution, we are beginning to remember our organic technology. A technology, when used correctly, can create an experience that the majority of people the world over want to live. It is time to use this technology consciously for our own benefit and healing, and no longer unconsciously for our own demise. We are divine creatures, creating both our own personal and our collective experience, moment to moment. We invite you to join us in the reawakening of this technology through experiment and experience the power to create and manifest. Become part of the 3%. The collective imagination.
Welcome, everybody, to, I don't even know what to call today, the Collective Imagination Show for, what's the date? The 20th of February. Now, I am personally more nervous than I have been since doing this radio show from the beginning, because there is so much to share, and I've been saying since Monday morning, words are failing me to express the bigness of it all, and that's what I really hope gets conveyed today. And I believe we do actually have Heather with us, and I hope she comes through loud and clear. Heather, have we got you?
I'm here, Lisa.
Lovely. Awesome.
Thank you.
And we've also got, of course, Bob, all of this. And Heather, I don't even know where you want to start. Where do you want to start?
Well, actually, a good intro is what you were just going through. I haven't even heard what you and Chris and Ken and Dee, I guess, were discussing once you found that document, because that's the essence behind the document, if you get my drift.
Yeah.
So if you could share with us, when you found that document, what kind of discussions did it invoke within you guys on that day?
Apart from the profanities? the holy crap moment? I don't know. Chris, you want to go first?
Well, yeah, look, it immediately brought an understanding to your continual statements ever since you started speaking publicly that it is done. Because here it was. This was the full stop at the end of the sentence, and it was, yeah. I mean, I was, you know, when you feel like you're on, if you're a body surfer, and you've ever been on the crest of a really big wave, and you know that when you kind of hit the bottom, it's going to be a beautiful thing. That's how it felt. Hard to describe, and at the same time, a fantastic thing to experience. And I hope everybody else who's been reading it in the last 2 hours has been having the same experience. It's just like it's the purest piece of truth I have ever been exposed to. Best way to describe it, I would say. What about you, Bob?
Oh boy, you're asking. Oh, it's like when you crest over the edge of a roller coaster, and you have that gasp when you realize what's actually happening, and that anticipation, that thing that you've been waiting for so long is right there in front of you. There was a rush. I'm still going through it, so it's kind of hard to.
Okay, for those of you who haven't looked at this document yet, the wording of it is up on my website at lisamharrison.com. It's on Dee's website at removingtheshackles.net. It's on. Is it on American Kabuki's?
Yeah, it's on Kabuki.
It's probably on Kawula Pele. If it's not, it will be very shortly. And it will be on the OPPT-IN.com website if it's not yet. So you may want to go and pull one of those sites up so that you can have a look as we're going through this today. Words fail me. So I'm sorry. Heather, you're going to have to step in at this point.
Okay.
But one of the things for people to really understand what's happened, they have to, in my opinion, understand the multidimensional aspect of the UCC, for example, of these filings, and of the nature of the reality that we've been in. I mean, for most people who have been down this straw man road, they understand that money, cash, currency is a measure of current. That's why it's called currency. And that by harvesting the currency, they're harvesting our energy. A lot of people get that aspect of it. So if you can get that aspect of it, then you can make it's not much of a leap to understand the multidimensional aspect of what we're talking about here. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, it's about the journey. And I did talk with Mel. She asked for it, so we discussed it. And this document, I guess we need to deal with a few perceptions here. How about that? Because the perceptions, the expectations that one holds by design are what allows someone to see something or not see something, okay? And a lot of people on this planet specifically believe that the powers that were, some of them still call them powers that be because they see the machine is perceived to still be rolling, but the spigot of energy has been turned off, and so it's really just rolling only because of the energy that was in the tubes when the spigot got cut off, okay? So let's address the powers that were. Everyone sees them as the cabal, the Bushes, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Dragons, Saint Germain, all those things. Well, with the exception of Saint Germain, the rest of them, and possibly the Dragons, the rest of them are really just brokers. They're agents. of the powers that were, when I refer to the powers that were, it's the wizards behind the screen, or the wizards behind the curtain, to make that reference to Wizard of Oz. Even the powers that were perceived as the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, those guys were even behind the curtain at one point for everyone on this planet, right? Took a lot of digging, a lot of research for people to figure out that they were behind at least the parts that they could see.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can grasp that for the specific purpose of this call, that those powers that were, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds et al., are really just brokers and agents, it might make this call, this particular purpose for today, a lot easier to grasp, to understand. Okay?
Anybody who's followed David Icke's work would understand that.
Yeah, there's a lot of people right now that have been. He's been persecuted for quite some time. And in banking, whenever there is a huge campaign, especially one on a global aspect, to discredit or essentially bury someone in all terms, you can tell.
And
hello,
Brian.
everyone.
Oh,
and
there's
there you are. And we've got Dee, and we're just waiting on Chris.
I'm here.
Oh, you're there.
Good.
Lovely.
Yep, all good.
Okay.
Calm down.
I know.
I just got to say real quick, I've been out of the mix for one day, and I feel like I'm coming back from a 1-year-long vacation, which, considering how much has happened today, just from being away from my computer for one day. So, trying to catch up.
Well, I'll share with you. I'm going to start by sharing with you my experience on Monday morning. One of the UCC filings that was filed on the 8th of December, we shared amongst a few of us, and I started to read it, and then Chris and I got on the phone with each other and started reading it together. And I did ask on yesterday's radio show that you please listen to my Beast vision, and also listen to the show that Heather did with Mel in order to prepare yourself for today's show. And what hit me as I was reading these documents was it was as if every little puzzle piece came into perspective and made a complete picture which sent, firstly, chills down all over. Then I even felt nauseous. Then I felt all of my, and this feeling has stayed with me, I have to say, I felt this tunnel open up on my back, and all of my lifetime started to compress in on my back, as if everything I set out to do from the time I was created had led up to right now. And I don't say that lightly. I burst into tears. It's been a very emotional few days. And that's why the nerves, because, like I said, words are just completely inadequate to express